In my village 15 years ago, there was an urban legend about a woman who comes out in the night and devours people. I didn't believe the kids there because that sounded a bit crazy. Everyone was talking about her. She was a terrifying figure, as everyone said, but I didn't believe that she existed, so I didn't pay attention when someone was talking about this subject. One night though, everything changed. While I was outside with a couple of friends, we heard some strange noises, but no one cared. We just kept on walking and minding our business, but then a strange woman wearing a white dress appeared in front of us. She asked, "Do you know where is the closest supermarket?" I nodded and showed to a random direction so that I could make her leave, 'cause she was making me uncomfortable. Then the night went on until 2:30 a.m. when we saw her again. She told me, "Boy, you lied to me. Now tell me, where is the supermarket?" I was ready to fight. I knew something was off about her. I attacked. I ran onto her, but I just went through her. I passed out from the collision because there was a wall behind her. I woke up after 10 to 15 minutes. My friends weren't there and the woman was also missing. I shouted, "Guys, where are you?" No answer. Then I heard some mumbled voices in the distance, like if someone was shouting with a cloth around his mouth. I heard the mumbled voices again. As I was getting closer, I could sense that something was off about the whole situation. My gut feeling was telling me something was off. I arrived at the place where I could hear the voices. It was my friend, all tied up to a chair and his limbs were missing. I was in total shock. I shouted, "What's going on?" And then, out of nowhere, his leg got cut off, like if someone came at him fast and cut it off. I was defenseless, could neither see nor hear the enemy. Then I heard my friend saying my name. "Please, George, come here, help me!" I was so shocked, so I couldn't respond or help him. He was about to die, so there was nothing I could do. Then I heard my other friend shouting, "George, I've caught her!" I ran to the voice I was hearing. That was my biggest mistake. There was that woman covered in blood and brains. She said,
"Your friends didn't have a good taste. Let me taste you."
I ran as fast as I could, though I could hear her behind me. Then I tripped and fell. That's where I saw someone passing by and screamed, "Please help me, I beg you!" The passerby didn't care. Then I could sense the woman's breathing on my neck. She whispered,
"Hush now, I will devour him later."
When I was a teenager, there was one night I had been hanging out with some friends and didn't have a way home, but wasn't allowed to stay. So I ended up just walking around the center of town. I was walking by this alley in between a church and some other building. It was just a kind of grungy place to smoke and kill some time. The interesting part was that the word paradox was spray painted on the brick foundation of the church. So I sat down and started talking to myself, just kind of thinking out loud to stay entertained and awake. It's important that I express that I was talking out loud to myself, not like an imaginary friend or anything like that. When I got up, I started walking again before I heard that single woo-wee and a police car pulled up next to me. I knew the cop because he was an assistant coach at my school. He asked me why I was out so late and I told him. Then he asked me where my friend went, and I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he said he saw me talking to another kid in the alleyway before he pulled up. So I said I was just talking to myself, and he goes, "No, I saw another kid sitting across from you. I was watching the whole time." He was serious. It was like he thought I actually had a friend with me and they ran away when they saw a cop car. He ended up driving me back to my house. Looking back, I've thought maybe he was just messing with me, or that his eyes were mistaken by a shadow or something. But at the time, it creeped me the fuck out. My father always pushed me to try harder. He was a Marine NCO before he retired. Seeing him laying there helplessly in his nursing home bed, all the years he traded in so that he could support us, etched into each wrinkle of his face. I knew better than to listen. Nobody really knows what the hell they're doing until they've realized they've done it wrong. The strive for success and congratulations from peers, it stuns so many. We only have so much time on this planet. Whether we have another chance later or not doesn't matter, because we have our chance. We're living it right now, watching it slip by every second. The heart rate monitor beeps and I feel my palms begin to sweat. My dad was always a frugal type, about saving money and working hard, not spending your time on things of little value. There wasn't going to be a will. The house went to the hospital bills even with insurance. His savings ran through with his retirement. He spent so much time working he didn't know how to live without the crunch of it. He had served his time and nothing more. I wonder how many people are born like that, who strive just to give. How many of those good-willed people, those climbing the social and physical ladder with all their hopes and encouragements lifting them up along the way, realize how used they are being, unable to think for themselves, with 5-year plans and retirement plans in photo books. What happens when plans go away? Do you feel regret at how you spent your time? Do you feel proud of all the good you accomplished? I would think to myself, maybe letting go sooner is a better choice. That death by my own hand is preferable to being robbed at the end. Your twilight hours, those terribly unbecoming, painful, ugly times. Why live in such respect for yourself? So many shallow and fake prides, just to wither like a rotten apple under the sun. This isn't what he wants. He had always wanted to go to a cabin on a lake, far away from everyone. He'd say, "Kill me before you let me end up in a nursing home." And I always brushed the words off. But seeing him here now, I understood why. In his half-conscious state, he looked at me and nodded. Pulling the plug wasn't enough, but the pillow did the job. I love you, Dad. I was in high school working my first job as a dishwasher at a Spanish-Italian restaurant that has since closed. It's a small town in central Mass, so it was the highest end restaurant in a good distance, although that's not important. I lived in the town over and either had agreed to cover someone else or just didn't have a ride, which meant I had to walk to work. It's a 2-hour walk, and I left early to be sure I'd get there on time. I got to the center of town and stopped in a common to rest my legs on a bench near a gazebo. I was maybe a half hour early and I had my headphones on. I'm sitting there when this guy comes walking over to me. He looked like Santa Claus. I can't remember what he was wearing, but he had a white beard and a jolly gut. This guy with one hand is smoking a cigarette and smoking at me. With the other hand, he reaches into his pocket and takes out a lollipop. Now, I was high, so my mind was reeling. Was this guy a creeper? Was he trying to sell me drugs? Kidnap me? I was 16 at the time, and I was in the town common, so I wasn't super worried, but I was unnerved. I gave the guy the dirtiest, most pissed off scroll I could manage, and he walked off and sat down on the other bench maybe 30 feet away. I kept looking over to see the guy looking at me, then looking away. I kept scrolling, and then I saw the guy get up and start walking across the common. And across the common was a woman and 2 toddlers playing, and this guy beelining it. Normally, I'm not that high-strung or paranoid as to not trust somebody, but something about this guy, about literally holding candy in his hand in front of me. Candy he never ate, by the way. He just put it back in his pocket after I gave him a dirty look. The guy just gave off bad vibes. I ran into my workplace and told the head chef. Well, I told everybody, but the head chef, who was a former armed serviceman, was the only one who took my concern seriously. He went outside and said that he didn't see anybody out there. Not the guy nor the lady, and who I assume were her kids. Now, for all I know, the guy could have been her dad. They could have gone separate ways, and that's most likely true. The town's small, and I would have heard about some crazy shit happening. But here's the clincher. A couple years later, I'm working at a different job in the same town, and there's a girl I'm working with who has lived in the town her whole life and is more up on the gossip and people and all that. I barely know my own neighbors, so I'm usually out of the loop on things. I forget exactly how it happened, but my encounter with this guy comes up in conversation. She looks at me all serious and asks if he had a big white beard like Santa Claus, and I'm like, yeah, no shit, you know the guy? And she tells me, the guy's a sex offender. I can look him up on Family Watchdog. He hadn't offended in years but was convicted for exactly what you think. It doesn't make me uncomfortable or my skin crawl anymore. It just makes me mad. The same way I felt when I first saw the guy, just angry. I don't know what his intention was or what he was thinking when he came walking up to me, but I'm glad I had the intuition to recognize he was sketchy. And even though he would hypothetically look friendly, you can't judge a book by its cover. Don't trust a Santa-looking motherfucker. Trust your gut. I would like to thank you/Gewrgioss and you/KMDarcy for submitting me their stories. I would also like to give a shout out to my editor Dicer for editing today's video. If you guys have any stories you'd like to share with me, DM me at you/Banshee_14. With all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.
Number 1.
I dropped my jaw in awe as I watched my toddler lift the fridge over his shoulders, wondering how his little body could hold so much weight. As I heard the snapping and cracking, however, I realized it couldn't.
Number 2.
I smile at the good-looking guy across the bar and take a sip of my drink, but as the world begins to swirl and I'm unable to move my body, I hear him and the bartender talk about what they'll do to me.
Number 3.
My mother used to collect my baby teeth once they had fallen out. I am now fully grown, yet her tooth collection is still growing.
Number 4.
My husband laughed at me for just pricking him with a pin after I caught him cheating. I wonder if he'll still find it funny when he tests positive.
Number 5.
There's no such thing as zombies, I told my terrified son after he woke up screaming. As we stared out his bedroom window at the rotting corpse slamming against it, I said, we just don't have a better word for whatever is going on.
Number 6.
You look outside to see a figure standing at the door, knocking to come in. You would have asked who it was, but you think it's best to keep driving.
Number 7.
Caitlin, are you there? The doctor asked her as soon as she started to regain consciousness, because he knew something could go wrong at any moment. The girl, knowing her name wasn't Caitlin, tried to scream for help, but someone else already took control of her mouth and said, I like this body, Dad.
Number 8.
I thought I could outsmart the by using my first wish to make him explain all the consequences of my hypothetical wishes. I didn't realize I would hear about every single thing I had ever wished for beforehand, because now I lay on my deathbed, and I still have 2 wishes left, but he just won't stop talking.
Number 9.
911, what's your emergency? I asked and listened to the quiet sobs of a little kid on the end of the line. I think my daddy wants to kill me, the girl said and cried, making me freeze on the spot as I recognized my daughter's voice.
Number 10.
After I lost my eyesight during a workplace accident, I made it a point to memorize the house layout, including the 14-step stairway to the basement. My heart sank when I started counting 15, 16, 17.
Number 11.
Everyone feels safe when they double check that the door is locked. They never seem to consider it might not have been them that locked it.
Number 12.
Don't open the door unless you hear one slow and then two quick knocks, my father had warned as he left the house to gather supplies. Now at 12 midnight, I can hear the same pattern of knocks resounding menacingly from every door and window of my home.
Number 13.
I gave my daughter my childhood doll last night to protect her from the monster in her closet. You can imagine my shock and horror when I opened her bedroom door this morning and saw a dismembered man splayed out on her floor and my doll sitting next to him, covered in blood.
Number 14.
Tearing up, my mother opens her arms for a hug as she whispers, "Sweetie, it has been way too long. Come here." Horrified, I start covering her grave faster.